This is a quick introduction into how to complete the Cloudia application form if you are a student and you would like access to a UCloud project. The first thing you do is navigate to researcher.au.dk, which you can just use Google to search for. Navigate to the website, go to Guides, Research Data and Software, High Performance Computing, and Access to HPC. On this page, one of the first sections is these quick links to application forms, in which the first option is a UCloud project form. I have completed some of this project form to make it quicker and easier to demonstrate it, but you basically need to fill this out. As the principal investigator on the project, you will be taking on several roles and responsibilities which you need to be aware of. And to check that, I recommend you click on this bottom link as principal investigator. And when you use UCloud services, you have also already signed their user terms and conditions, which I recommend that you do read through. You need to input your name, email address, select your department, and provide a project title before indicating whether it's a new or an existing project. If this is an existing project, you must use exactly the same title that was used in your first application and later added to the UCloud platform. After that, you need to provide a motivation and short description. This involves an abstract length description of your research. There should be at least an extended paragraph with up to about 300 or 400 words. Beyond that, you also need to explain why this research requires resources to be granted to you from the national grant that we allocate from. We use this to motivate to DeiC why we should give these resources to each specific research project. Beyond that, there's a selection of what level of data sensitivity you have, and that is according to the present data classification model at Aalborg University. Levels 0 and 1 are public and internal information and can be used on any of the systems. Levels 2 and 3 may not be used on 2 out of 3 of the systems. So if you have level 3 sensitivity data, you may only use those resources or compute resources provided by SDU, and we'll see those in the coming pages. You need to provide a start date and an end date, and project categories and compute resources. This is the start of indicating who you are in terms of the category of the project. In this case, I'm demonstrating a student project and pretending that I am in fact a student. I can then select student research projects, click next, and then I'm required to provide my supervisor's name and email address. I've put my own email address in so that I can demonstrate what happens on the supervisor side in terms of the approval that they need to provide. Let's just click next. Is this a transcription project? No, it's not. I can carry on to the next step, and then we're asked what type of compute you need. And here's where the 3 different areas on UCloud first come into play. DeiC Interactive AAU, this AAU with no K8 on it, are virtual machines. This AAU K8 is the Aalborg located apps environment, so we just call it standard compute. And the top one, DeiC Interactive HPC SDU, are all those products provided by SDU, and we call that SDU standard compute. All 3 options have got GPU resources in them, and you will see that if we choose a combination resources and go through each of them, you will see that there are different options available in each in terms of the size and nature of the GPU. But the top 2 options, the SDU standard compute and AAU standard compute, those are apps run on the UCloud platform as applications, whereas the last one is if you want to have a Linux virtual server running for you available via an SSH connection. If we go on to the different types of compute that are available, the first one that you encounter is SDU compute, where sensitive data is allowed. And there are 3 possible places to provide information here. That is for CPU hours, GPU hours, and storage. And you must have storage if you want to be able to do anything in the application environment on UCloud. And if you want to run something on the compute that's available at SDU, you must also have storage at SDU. You can't run compute from SDU on storage at Aalborg University. They need to be in the same physical location. So We have CPU hours, and in this case, I need to run a computer for 3 days, and I'm going to use a machine that has 16 CPUs in it, and I can quickly calculate 24 times 16, and that's 384 core hours. And that's 384 per day, which means that I need to do 16 by 24, and I need this for 3 weeks, let's say 21 days, 8,000 core hours. And that's if this machine is going to be running full time. So let's just ask for 8,000 core hours. And I may need to run a GPU for a period, and this is a very powerful H100 NVIDIA GPU, and I probably will need to run that for a total, let's say, of 6 hours. In this case, I simply need to provide 6 because those are the total number of hours per GPU. You can run up to 4 H100 GPU cards simultaneously, but that'll cost you 4 by 4. It just scales according to the number of GPUs you want to use. The last thing that we need to remember to do is provide information about how much storage we need. And what we normally recommend is to consider the amount of storage you have and add 20%. So let's say I had 1 gigabyte. It needs to be in whole gigabytes. So let me just say 2 gigabytes of storage. Yes, I want other resources or compute resources, and I can show you those. The next section is the Aalborg standard compute area. And this is roughly the same information that needs to be provided. You can ask for CPU core hours. So let's just put 100 in there. And I want to have 5 A10 hours and again 2 gigabytes of data. Now these two storage environments you'll see inside the UCloud platform at the end are 2 separate compute areas, but both run the applications. So when we look to run an application, we then need to choose what computer to use and then choose what storage to attach to the application. And that's where you choose between Aalborg and an SDU. Neither of those two can be used on virtual machines. They're a separate entity entirely. So let's move on to the virtual machine resources. And you'll see there are 5 different options, if I recall correctly. There you can start a virtual machine of a variety of sizes that has only CPUs in it. You can also start a variety of numbers of GPUs on a virtual machine. And in this category, we have the T4, the A10, the A40, and the A100 GPUs. A100s we typically reserve only for researchers, but there are also very few times when that machine is actually available. And all of these resources are dependent on what other researchers are doing. So if someone has occupied all of the A100 cards, you cannot start a machine and you'll just get an error when you try to run it in the platform. But let's put a simple number in here. So here we want to, let's say, give us the option of starting a machine with 64 cores. So let's just say 300 CPU hours. And then in all the other categories, it's according to GPUs. So how long do you want to run this T4 GPU machine for? And let's just say 2 hours in each case. And when we have our resources allocated, each of these resources will show a total of 2 hours to use. If you do need MATLAB console or ANSYS licenses, you need to say, I would like to apply for these, and go next and indicate the number of licenses that you may need. If you need to run jobs simultaneously, so multiple MATLAB jobs simultaneously, each job will require its own license. You can't replicate the same license on all simultaneous jobs because that license number that gets drawn from our license server will be occupied. So if you have multiple jobs to run simultaneously, please request multiple licenses. So let's just say we want to run 3 MATLAB jobs simultaneously, and we're not going to draw on the console or the ANSYS license server. There is an option of requesting public IP addresses, but unfortunately there are no free public IP addresses on UCloud presently. Most of the applications in UCloud, however, still provide the option of connecting through an SSH connection. So you don't actually need a public IP address if you are not running a public IP app. The only other place that you need an IP address to connect to is on the virtual machines and all of the virtual machine IP addresses are public by default, so you can connect to them from anywhere. Let's go next. In this case, I am a project group of 1, and I am the only student in this project, and I just need to fill in my name and email address. And from there, you can just either select no if you don't have any further project members, or yes if you need to add another group member, and you can add them below. I'm going to select no and go next, and then I'll be asked whether or not I have external collaborators, and this is not where you can request access for them, but only where you inform us that you have external collaborators. Here you can click yes if you've got them and have had them approved by either your institute leader or by the Department of Grants and Contracts. Otherwise, you just click no and you can submit your response.